frankly, when I wrote Authentic Leadership, I did not want to write it. I didn't want to write it. It was one of those things where I had a lot going on. I had an organization that I was launching, branches. It was just getting kicked off. I didn't know how to write a book. I didn't think I had a very good topic. It was something that resonated with me, but no idea if it would resonate with anyone else. And if it did, who? No idea about the writing process. Thought it was going to be maybe shorter than it was. Thought it was going to be a little more straightforward than it was. It was something I did not want to do. But the truth is, when I wrote it, when I committed to writing it, I felt compelled. I felt like it was something that if I didn't write it, I would be in willful disobedience of what God called me to do. Let me tell you the story. So it was 2019, it was January 1st, and literally the clock had just turned from 2018 to 2019. And I had already committed to launching branches with my co-founder. And him and I had really been really clear about what we wanted to do in the next year, how hard it was going to be. It's an international consulting firm that was going to be working with Christian entrepreneurs all over the world. And it was hard. We really had to, claw our fingers in the dirt to get this thing off the ground. It was challenging. At the same time, I felt like God was calling me, and not like an audible way, but like a sort of look, I want you to write this book. And I felt so unbelievably compelled to do it that I posted on social media and I said, I am going to write a book in 2019. And when I clicked send on Facebook, I remember thinking, gosh, what a terrible idea. This is going to be horrible. So the whole process was longer than I expected. I had written a manuscript and it was literally the very best thing I had ever put together. It was the longest thing I'd ever put together. And then I sent it off to the editor and I said, I think this is going to be good. I think this is going to work. I think I've got something here. I was feeling pretty confident. Then she sends me back the manuscript and it has red marks all over it. And she essentially is like, yeah, this is trash. This isn't very good at all. I mean, the feeling I had that the very best effort I'd ever put out wasn't good enough was staggering. It was really humbling. It was demoralizing in a lot of ways. But again, feeling compelled, I got back in and started reworking it, moving stories around, making it clear, cutting things that didn't make any sense, really trying to internalize her feedback. She was an expert. She knew what she was doing. And really try to understand a little bit more about what would make this story, this book, help people, what would make it resonate. Then there was the process of actually, working on the cover, trying to find the right kind of cover, making sure I had enough pages and enough stories, then making sure that I distributed it well, making sure that I had the right endorsements in the front of the book and right endorsements in the book, making sure all the citations are correct. I mean, there's just all these hurdles to get through step by step by step. I thought I was going to be done in 6 months. It took me almost a year and a half to get the book done. But when it was finally done, I remember seeing, the stacks of books all printed and ready to go. It absolutely changed my life. I mean, it literally changed my life. There were things that I'd been saying for years, just in, keynote speeches and to friends and family and to people, just around town, that when you put it in a book, suddenly it amplifies the message. People understand you clearer. They take you far more seriously, and you have the opportunity to speak to people that you wouldn't have been able to speak to before. Like, for example, I remember when the president of Costa Rica was reading my book. That was a pretty extraordinary moment. I remember when the CEO of Walmart sent me a handwritten note telling me how much he appreciated the books and the book and the stories in the book. And then I remember when I saw and learned that Harvard Business School was using Authentic Leadership as part of its executive MBA course. That floored me, because what it showed me was that the effort of writing the book, the process of just slogging it out, like bleeding on the page, sleepless nights where I think the ideas are dumb and it doesn't make any sense, and the editor comes back and says, you're right, it doesn't make any sense, and all these sort of iterative processes really were helping people. It clarified the problem. It helped them understand very specifically what the problem was. It gave them language for it, and then it gave them very specific tools on how to fix it. And turns out, insecurity is something that leaders at the very highest level battle with, and they wonder how to solve it. Turns out that authenticity actually is the answer for insecurity. Once I started to see the solution out in the world and started to see their lives changed by it, it made all the difference. And it made me think about writing book number 2. Even though it's a hard process, I think it might be a little bit easier this time around because I know the good it can do in the world. And we're going to relive some experiences, starting with the most embarrassing moments about writing the book. First, the most embarrassing thing about this book. Now, if I was going to say the most embarrassing thing about this book, it would have to be the moment I received the very first edit from the editor. I had written the very best, literally the very best thing I had ever written in my life. The manuscript was 90% done, in my opinion. I thought I was just going to send it off to the editor, and then she was going to send it back and say, "Wow, Dan, we're almost there." Instead, she sent it back with, like, I don't know, from my perspective, billions of red marks. Like, it was just terrible. And I just couldn't believe that I had written something so bad, or that she had spent that much time on correcting something so terrible. It felt like I had to start over from the beginning. It was an unbelievably embarrassing moment. Another embarrassing moment was frankly, the size of the book. I thought that I had written a lot of words. I thought I'd written a lot of pages. And honestly, when I sent it off to the printer, the publisher, I thought I was going to get back a typical sort of, thick size book. And when they sent it back to me with the cover and all that stuff and everything was kind of finished, it was significantly smaller than I thought. And frankly, I was embarrassed. I was like, gosh, this little tiny book took me a year and a half to write. I felt like I was like a mini author, not like a real author who wrote a real book. It was really, really disappointing. Now, the truth is, I wrote the best that I could, and I stopped when I had no more words to write. Like, I didn't want to add a bunch of filler, and I didn't want to just throw a couple chapters in. I knew that I was going to write stuff that I thought was true, and I was going to stop once I realized that I had no more words to say. But when I got the book back, gosh, it was humbling. It was embarrassing. When I handed it to people, it was like, yep, this is the tiny little book I wrote. And initially, I was embarrassed. Another really embarrassing moment was when I spent probably, 2-3 weeks writing a particular story in the book. And I really tried to make it clear. I wanted people to really understand what I meant by the concept and had a story that went along with it. And then once the book came out, I heard from person after person after person that was the most confusing part of the book. Like, they didn't understand what I meant at all. In fact, it's a story of a little man who has a big man on a leash, and it's supposed to be about, pretense and pretending. And look, when I read it again, it actually didn't make any sense. Like, it was genuinely confusing. You can pick up the book and you can turn to that page and you can read it and you can skip it too, just like everybody else did, because it literally just made no sense at all. And I was embarrassed because I worked really hard on that section and just didn't make any sense. All right, so the things I wish I knew before I got into this. Number one, I wish I would have known it would have taken as long as it took. It took freaking forever. I thought, I've said this already, it took a year and a half. Frankly, I thought it was going to take 6 months. Like, I thought 6 months of concerted effort. I'd never done anything for 6 months straight, as far as writing goes. And so I figured, well, come on now. Like, I could write a full book in 6 months. Nope. It was much, much, much harder and much longer than I expected. So I wish I'd have known it would have taken that long. Another thing I wish I would have known is the power of research before writing. Sometimes, you just get in and you start typing words and you think you've got great stories and you're just sort of on a roll. But the truth is, when you spend time doing research before you actually start writing, when you start figuring out the right stories, the right outline, the right quotes, and you start putting them in order according to how you think the book should flow before you ever write a single word, that gives you so much power when you actually start writing. The flow is easier. Things make more sense. I didn't know any of that. I just literally sat down on my computer and just started pounding away. Chapter 1, da-da-da-da-da. These are the first thoughts I had. So if I could do it over again, I would have done much more structured research before I would have done some writing. It would have made the whole process that much easier. The next one is really similar. The power of editing after writing. So I did the same thing that a lot of first-time writers do, where I was editing while I was writing. There's like two parts of your brain that have to work when you're writing. The first part is like the critical part, where you're like critiquing every single word. And the other one is the creative part, where you're like flowing and really having crazy ideas and things just come out. When you pair the two together, literally in the same session, they fight against each other and they make the entire process horrible. The critical part destroys the creative part. What you got to do, and what I didn't know, and what I would do again if I could, is I would have a creative session where it would be about writing as many pages as I possibly could. Don't worry about misspellings. Don't worry about things that don't make sense. Don't worry about flow. Just get as many ideas on the page as I possibly can. And then I would have a critical session where I would just start to critique, and I would go through and I would edit my creative session. And if I had both of those, the whole process would have gone significantly faster. One day is about creativity. The other day is about criticism and critique. That way, the whole process would have gone so much smoother. All right, here's the last thing that I wish I knew. So you write a book. It is super hard, right? You're bleeding all over the page. It takes longer than you expected, da-da-da-da. We've talked about all that stuff. And then the book actually comes out. You actually hold it in your hand. You go to a coffee shop and you see somebody else reading it. You're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm actually an author. Like, it's a weird, unbelievably amazing moment. And then you think you're done. You start thinking about the next book. Well, that's actually not even when you're done. That's just the beginning. The fact is, it takes a lot of work and effort to publish a book. It takes another lap around the track to promote the book. It's the promotion that really makes a big difference. It's one thing to write the book. It's another thing to actually get it in the hands of people who could actually benefit from it. If you're genuine about wanting to use your book to help people, they got to know about it. They got to actually understand what their problem is and how this book is a key to unlock the solution. And that means that you've got to talk about yourself. You've got to go on TV. You've got to get on social media. You've got to do book tours. You've got to, get in newspapers. There's all these things that you have to do relentlessly to get your book out in public. And here's the hard part. The truth is, the kind of person who loves to write a book rarely loves to promote the book. And the kind of person who loves promoting books rarely is able to write a good book. It's this weird dichotomy. And so when you find people who can do both, that's when you get people who can write New York Times bestsellers, because they're taking two different, seemingly diametrically opposed functions, and they're putting them together and they're making it work. Those are the people who write amazing books that a lot of people read. One thing that's still true 6 years later is that the higher you go up in leadership, the more insecure you tend to feel. It's the truth with really any position, because oftentimes when you get a promotion or your business grows or you have more influence than you've ever had before, people start looking at you differently. They start asking you for answers that you actually don't have, especially if it's a new position, because now it's brand new. You're not sure of the terrain. You've never been at that high of a level before. And so oftentimes insecurity creeps in where you don't want people to know that you actually don't know what you're doing. That's a real thing. So insecurity oftentimes comes with growth of the company, growth of your influence, growth of your reputation. Here's something else that's still true. Authenticity is still the antidote for insecurity. Insecurity is something that leaders almost always face at some point in their leadership journey. And the good news is that authenticity is still the antidote. Like, finding a way to lead with nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to lose not only eliminates insecurity in you, but it helps you become a better leader. People are attracted to authenticity, especially now, especially in this generation. And so that's something that was true 6 years ago, and thank goodness, it's still true today. Here's another thing that's still true after 6 years. It is always better to preach only what you've practiced. A lot of people have read the book around the world, and the number one comment I get again and again and again is that little phrase at the very end of the book. It is always better to preach what you practice as opposed to practicing what you preach. When you only preach, we only talk about, you only teach the things that you've actually done yourself, there's a whole nother level of credibility, whole nother level of confidence, frankly, a whole nother level of authenticity that people can really get attached to. That gives you a much better platform to then preach because you've got the practice under your belt. Here's the last thing that was true 6 years later. The book was 100% worth it to write, even if nobody read it. Now, a lot of people did read it, and it was fun to see it in hands of people who could really make a difference with the concept. But even if nobody read it, it did something for me. Like, it helped me become a more empathetic leader. I understood my own insecurities a lot better. I understood the power of authenticity a lot better. I had clear examples of what it meant to be an authentic leader. I could point to other authentic leaders in the world and see how they were operating and really kind of give them encouragement. The best part about it was I could really empathize with executives, entrepreneurs, entertainers, owners, athletes, people who have a high position in our society. I could understand why their lives might look good on the surface, but are really sometimes filled with insecurity behind the scenes. And I could empathize and really help them in ways that I might not have been able to help them before. The book did wonders for me, even if nobody read it. Now, the opportunities generated from the book. Let's start with the top. Speaking opportunities. I love public speaking. I love speaking from stages. And the book gave me this unbelievable sense of credibility. I could say to people, hey, here's what I talk about. Here's the value proposition for your audience. And here's the book that I've written that proves to you that I know what I'm talking about. And people could read the book, they could understand a little bit more about who I am and what the book is about, and they could decide whether they wanted to have me on their stage. And more often than not, the answer was yes, because I was addressing a problem that their audience actually had. And so the truth is, the book opened all kinds of doors for speaking opportunities, and I was glad to take it because I love speaking on stages and bringing energy to crowds. The next opportunity was consulting opportunities. This is working, hands-on with an organization, really helping them grow as leaders or helping them grow with discipline or organizational excellence, anything like that. And this really helped the consulting company that I work with, Branches Worldwide, reach far more companies around the world. The book became, in a lot of ways, a calling card, a way to say, hey, we can help you with this specific thing and a lot of other things. And so it opened the door for consulting opportunities for me personally, and also consulting opportunities for the organization that I work with, Branches Worldwide. The next opportunity that the book created was the opportunity to give people language around insecurity. This is what I saw a lot. I saw that, people would get promoted and then they'd have this feeling that, gosh, they're just not good enough, and they'd start to regret the decision, or their business would blow up and they'd start to feel this sense of weird anxiety and they didn't know what it was, or their company would get really, really big really, really quickly, or people would look at them differently and they just didn't know what that weird feeling was. I was able to give language to insecurity in a way that people could really understand it. And I was really, really proud of that. I got to see opportunities, for example, where people would get a promotion or their business would blow up, for example, and then someone would hand them authentic leadership and say, hey, we get that big things are happening for you right now. You're probably going to feel some crippling insecurity pretty soon. So here's the book just in case. Almost like a sort of like a gift to recognize that they really did care about the person who's experiencing a lot of initial success. So it was a lot of fun to put language around the idea of insecurity and authenticity. All right, here's the last one. And here's the big question I get over and over and over again. How much revenue did the book generate? Well, I'm going to be honest with you, more than I expected. Honestly, I didn't do it for the money, but once the book got out there and once it started to kind of circulate around the world, it was incredible to watch what happened. Between the revenue that came in from the book itself, the actual royalties, the consulting opportunities, the speaking opportunities, the amplification of Branches as a consulting firm, altogether, it was definitely over $500,000. And it was incredible to watch the people that it helped and people's willingness to actually put out dollars to get consulting, to read the book itself, to have me come speak, to bring our company in. There was a lot of great things that came from it. And that kind of passive income, in a lot of ways, made a big difference for my family. It made a big difference for Branches as an organization. It was incredible. And so would I write the book again? Absolutely. Was it one of the most painful experiences of my life? Yes, definitely. Will I be excited to write a book again? You better believe it. After all that reflecting and all that thinking, I am pleased to announce that I am writing another book. I am so excited because I'm going to bring a lot to this next book that I didn't bring to the last book. And I'm pleased with how the last book turned out. I'm going to bring better stories. I love engaging stories that bring a particular concept to life and really make people understand the issue at hand. And frankly, I'm excited to bring to this book 6 years of clarity and reflection. I've talked to some of the best entrepreneurs, executives, and owners all over the world. Branches has consulted with some of the best businesses all over the country. And all of that is going into this next book. Frankly, I'm excited to bring 4 years of doctoral research in global leadership to this book. I've finished a doctorate in global leadership, and I'm thrilled to be able to put some of my research into this next project. So thank you guys again for watching this video. And if you've been along this journey from the very beginning, if you bought Authentic Leadership, if you handed it to a friend, if you've followed anything that Branches has done for the last 8 years, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thanks for supporting. Thanks for being a part of the mission to help the world become better leaders. It's just been a thrill. And I'm excited that the book is going to come out soon and it'll be in your hands before you know it.